May the January 4th be with you.
Well, we've both got something wrong with us then.
Wow, what's yours?
I can't talk about it on camera, but I'll tell you off air.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
No worries.
So, January the 4th. Are you ready? Okay, get ready for this. All you need are these: certainty of judgment in the present moment, action for the common good in the present moment, and an attitude of gratitude in the present moment for anything that comes your way. By my friend and yours, Marcus Aurelius.
Marcus Aurelius. Wow.
So we can think of that as perception, action, and will. And perception is an interesting, right? This is one of these things that I always geek out about. It can give you a bit of a panic attack, this, but you are unable to see things as they actually are. And that's something that I always think about. Often what you're doing is either seeing things in their absolute worst, and it feels much worse than it actually is, and I'm suffering more in my imagination than I'm in reality, to take a quote from our friend Seneca. Or I'm seeing things much better than they actually are. But it's very, very hard for us as people to see the objective reality. And there's things like recency bias, right, that we've experienced as salespeople, which might be I've had 100 good conversations, but then I have one conversation where it's someone saying, why don't you go and get a real job? This is ridiculous. Do you know about GDPR? You know, you get absolutely hammered by someone on the phone, and the next thing you know, forget about all those 100 good conversations I've had. This is the worst job ever. I hate myself. What am I doing here? And that's, again, perception. That's your brain starting to tell you a story. And it's not for a bad reason. That recency bias, that little shortcut in the brain, is kicking in to keep you safe. It's because it doesn't want you to be rejected. Because what is rejection?
Rejection, I mean, there's a whole story on rejection, but basically rejection is the feeling that you're going to die. Okay, it goes back thousands and thousands of years. When you think about the tribe, if you were rejected from the tribe, you'd probably end up dead because you'd get kind of mauled to death by a tiger. So it's that feeling. But actually, right now, you get rejected, you feel a little bit silly, your cheeks go a bit crimson, but actually, no one's going to die. No one's ever died in sales apart from at the Christmas party after a few too many shandies. But that's for another episode.
And I'm sorry about what I did. And obviously, I still make payments to the family now. Can we say that? I don't know. Anyway, the next point is around action, right? And action is a really interesting one that I think all salespeople should know. What actually makes someone act? So if you're an SDR, let's say, your primary function is not only how do I book a meeting, but how do I get someone to show up to a meeting, right? And regardless of the sales methodology that you follow, you're really looking for two things. Does the person I'm speaking to have a problem that we solve? And is there the motivation to fix it? And how I think about that is, it's interesting, isn't it? How I think about it is emotion will come from deep thought, right? So if I can make someone really think about the problem that they solve, so you ask them a question that makes them go, wow, that's a good question. Or you ask them something that's challenging and you make them think, well, I need to do something about this because the business is failing. Suddenly there's that emotional attachment. And when someone has to attach an emotion to something, that's then when there's action.
It's like a flagpole. We call it a flagpole in the sand. And if you push it, does it like move? Does it stand on its own? There's some great things you can do around that. So if you think about perception, I always think, what is actionable? What can you take away? Get a Post-it note, stick it on your desk, and say, write down these two questions. Is this useful? Is this true? So when those thoughts come into you, obviously we're all an amalgamation of different human biases. Nobody wants to talk to me today. Just ask yourself those two questions. Is this useful? No. And is this true? What is true? Is it true, or is it an unbalanced opinion? So they're the things that I think of. And when we think about kind of like the motivation, make sure that you're asking the right questions. Qualified for different people means different things, but make sure that they do have a problem and they are genuinely motivated to solve it. So talk me about the third one.
The third one is will. Okay, and I think it's very easy and almost a little bit trite to say the will to show up every day and do the action, even though you're getting rejected, even though there's a snowstorm banging in your face. Where I think people struggle with the will is when they think they've got the sure thing in the back pocket. You've got the big deal. The big deal's suddenly clouding your judgment and making you not focus on everything else. What happens if the big deal doesn't come in? And another thing that the Stoics would often meditate on is the idea of the worst thing happening. One of them, it might have been Seneca in Letters from a Stoic, was talking about how one of his friends' city or town or something had burnt down. And he said the problem is why it's affected him so much is he never imagined that would happen. He never played out the worst possible scenario. And I think as salespeople, the big deal coming in, that's the city, isn't it? That's where I'm gonna bass. That's where my promotion is.
Yeah.
That's where my commission is. That's where the holiday to Bali is, like in that one deal. But you've not prepared yourself for what if it goes away. So the will for me is, do you have the will, regardless of good and bad, to just do the actions no matter what? Nothing can disrupt the flow. Doing really well, doing really badly, you still show up and have to do the output. And that way, your results are going to be consistent and predictable.
Beautiful. And one of the things that we shout a lot about is like, you can't lose something that you never had. So we're saying that people bank on stuff, okay? But actually, if it's not signed and the money's in the bank, it's not yours. So like, you can't get upset on things that haven't been a dead cert. So I think there's some beautiful advice. Smash it on this lovely January day. I've been Jack Frimston.
I've been Zach Thompson.
Remember, you will die.
MOT's only £1.